Hello, everyone. Welcome to Ethnically Correct, the episode where we allow you to ask us questions and we talk about current topics of the day. So we're actually live. This is our humble abode here in Santa Monica, California. We're always grateful to our producer, Dan House, for allowing us use of his living room. These are really great quarters. There's amazing lighting. There's always food, drinks, and a number of diversions here that keep us all enthusiastic and set on what we need to do, which is share our views and opinions with you, our wonderful guests out there in Ethnically Correct Land. And of course, this podcast would not be available or possible without the great contributions of the women to my left and to my right. So we have Tehu Smythe. Hello, Tehu.
Hello, Alex. Good evening. How are you?
I am doing splendidly well, thank you. And to my left is Winter White.
Hey, Alex. Hey, everybody in Ethnically Correct Land.
So we decided to open this up for our viewers, our listeners, and today is a very special day for a number of reasons. And primarily, we have a huge death in the music world, I'd say, in the pop and cultural world. The great artist Prince has passed away at the age of 57 in his home. We still don't know the cause and motive for death. Just a week ago, he gave 2 amazing concerts in Atlanta, and these were really sort of stripped-down concerts. It was him at the piano for about an hour and 20 minutes in front of an audience where tickets were, upwards of $1,000 in some cases, and he really just delivered what would be his last concert. Right. And huge loss. He was probably one of the top 10 artists of our time, not even generation, but just of our time, had an indelible imprint in the way we think about music, was really a multi-genre sort of artist. He kind of blurred color lines. Mm-hmm. He was just that epic and formidable as a human being and as a statement of art. And so our pop culture encyclopedia, a.k.a. Winter, can you lead us through the significance of Prince and why so many people are mourning him on social media?
I feel like the reason why, aside from what you just said, just a musical icon and super talented, all of these things that are just so, it's like, duh, we know that about Prince. But what I think people just relate to and what they're really, I think, dealing with right now is that Prince was a part of your life. At least for me, I can think of moments in time of my life by a Prince song. Aside from just this huge talent, it just transcended, like you said, race, even sexuality. Prince was androgynous, but at the same time, so damn sexy, Right. I heard someone say on the radio today that he's the only black man that could wear tight pants and have cleavage out in a shirt and nobody questioned his sexuality. It was just sexy, and
that's interesting.
Yeah. And I have a couple friends on my Facebook who said, Prince gave us the okay to be weird when being weird wasn't cool. So I think it's more than music. It's just who he was, and what he stood for, which was just being yourself completely and totally, and you could be accepted for that. Right now, I know I'm thinking about, when I first got introduced to Prince, and I remember it. And that's a huge thing to say. I remember when I was introduced to an artist, and it was when I was maybe like 9 or 10. I remember my mom and I going to see Purple Rain at the movies. I remember we got on the bus, and we got the bus to a little town near Long Beach called Lakewood, and we saw Purple Rain. And I don't think my mom knew how graphic the movie was going to be, because I remember distinctly like her putting her hands over my eyes when the sexual parts came, and I was like trying to peek. And I just remember that, and it's just so real and raw to me today, and just being so completely enthralled by like just the music. So it's just much more than just this talent. It's this person. He stands for so much, and it's a huge loss.
Absolutely. He was a captivating artist and a real old school one in the sense that I think he also wrote a lot of the songs.
Yeah.
Wrote all of them actually. Yeah. Produced his songs. Mm-hmm. He also co-produced a lot of songs with a lot of other artists. He wrote lyrics, and he was just incredible. His music was fun. His he was also a fashion icon
Yeah.
for so many
Yeah.
years. When Prince wore something, it'd be copied on the runways. It'd be, people think it was cool to dress like him.
Yeah.
He really was an icon.
Totally.
It's a very sad loss.
Yeah.
But tragic.
One thing that stood out to me, I was listening to NPR and All Things Considered on the way over here, and there was an interview with his first manager representative, and he said that when he was 18, this kid was introduced to Warner Brothers at the time, Warner Brothers Music, and he wanted complete authority over his songs. He wanted a complete creative authority. He wanted to be able to make decisions, self-produce, and he wanted, for the remainder of the lifespan of the songs, he wanted to be able to make decisions in terms of the artistic direction of his music. And the president of Warner at the time said, but he's an 18-year-old kid. Why would we allow him to do that? And so apparently he had so much aplomb and so much, he was so secure in the magnificence of his work that the manager said, let's do this. Let's go into the recording studio and you can observe him as a producer. And apparently 30 minutes into the session, the president of Warner goes out and tells the manager, he has it. He has complete authority. He is so amazing and so talented, and he's so inimitable as a tour de force in the artistic world that we are going to relinquish all control to him.
Wow.
And that sent chills up my spine, because so many people these days think they are creative. They think that they are masterminds and really pioneers and proto leaders in their world. And when you think of somebody like Prince, you say he really kind of was one of a kind and only was peered by very few people. Bob Dylan and Michael Jackson and folks of that caliber. So the other person on NPR was telling us that the death of Prince is going to be the death of somebody like John F. Kennedy or Michael Jackson. I remember that when Michael Jackson died, I was in my living room, and I remember that Peter Jennings, also may he rest in peace, interrupted the broadcast and said, "We've learned that Michael Jackson has passed away." I remember when Lady D passed away. I remember, when 911 hit, my dad woke me up and said, "They're burning your country down." So I was actually, for Prince, I had just walked into the office, and my coworker TJ said, "Do you know that Prince died?" And I said, "Absolutely no. And this morning I wasn't on the radio." So it's one of those things that have such a lasting impact. I mean, Google, of all entities, dedicated their doodle to him today, right?
It's purple, and on Snapchat. So if you guys are on Snapchat, you'll know that they have geotagging, where when you snap, you can actually put like a location of where you are, and there's some type of stamp almost on the video or on the picture, and they have raindrops on Snapchat. Another thing that I actually thought about when I was thinking about Prince and what a incredible artist and person he was, most of our artists have some type of controversy, huge controversy against them personally. Michael Jackson with the child molestation charges, Whitney Houston with the drugs. It's hard to be an artist of that stature and not walk away with some huge blow. And Prince, aside from his fights with his label just because he wanted autonomy, never had any controversy like that.
That's a very interesting observation, Winter. Yeah, he really came off very clean, squeaky
Yeah.
clean.
I mean, and it's not that you didn't know he was, a freak, probably, most likely. But, I mean, really, you would think with someone who was so sexually free and androgynous and who blurred the sexual lines, you'd think that maybe there'd be some lewd story out there. I haven't heard it.
Well, maybe because he was so free in expressing who he was, because from a psychological perspective, he didn't have any sort of obstacles in his manifestation and his exteriorization of the self. There was nothing for him to, there was no anomaly or no deviation in how he interacted with the world. I mean, from a psychological perspective, it's when you have these sort of occult, hidden, maroon things that all those crazy sort of psychologically deviant things come about. I don't know from a
Sure. I
psychological
mean,
perspective.
he was very secure in himself, obviously, to be able to do what he did. And the thing is, you can get away with absolutely anything if you're confident. And unfortunately, these days, that's something that we're missing a lot in our society. We have a lot of social media, but yet, and ways to kind of portray ourselves, yet there is a real underlying insecurity that seems to exist along a lot of our artists. During, the days of, the 80s, Prince was huge in the 80s and also in the 90s. We didn't have the prevalence of social media, so there was nothing to hide behind. And, I think he's a very good example of just, if you're confident, you can literally do anything you like in this world.
I love that observation. I couldn't agree more.
And so what that tells us as a society is that I think we need to allow people sometimes the room to actually do what they do best and not get in their way. I think a lot of times, especially now with the instantaneous sort of back and forth of social media, Snapchat, etc., we want people to make immediate pronunciations. We want them to make immediate feedback statements on whatever, So let's say that I'm a person that is sharing something with the world, then in 30 seconds, someone already has something to say, and they're already questioning why you went there. And for us to be able to solidify ourselves, we need room to actually struggle ourselves without anybody's intervention, right? And so I think, I don't know what everybody else thinks, but if you have any thoughts on what Prince meant to you, please leave us a message in the comment section of the current episode, because we are live. But we'd like to know, why was Prince the kind of person that made the entire world today sort of stop and reflect on what he means to pop culture, what he means to the world? Because very few people have this level of impact. I remember that when Princess Diana died, Mother Teresa died shortly thereafter, and there were all these specials about what they meant from a world diplomacy perspective, from a charity perspective, and for Prince, I think people were just enamored with his art. They loved that raw expression of the self, unhindered and unencumbered by any kind of other measure, but just a visceral sort of expression. And somebody said this about his concerts in Atlanta, was that stripped of all the showmanship that he was famous for, you got to hear him on the piano with medleys and very special sort of concoctions or joinings of songs that to a lot of people there, they had never thought of putting one song next to the other, but he was such a genius that he was able to just weave those two things together in a very masterful, beautiful sort of way. And so I really would like to know how people feel about that. And you, Winter, you're an artist, and how did he inspire you at some level to pursue, like, your blog, right? This is your creative outlet.
I look at people like Tehu said, who are themselves 100%, and it inspires me to be more myself, to not be afraid to say what's on my mind, to put it out there, because, doing art, whether it's singing, whether it's writing, in whatever form it is, it's a way of stripping down. You strip down, and you're really putting yourself on display for people to judge. And there have been judgments. I mean, you think you do, or some may think you do a silly blog and it's about parties and it's about having fun, and how is that someplace, some way someone can judge you, and people are judging your pictures, people are judging your grammar, people are judging your opinions. So I think Prince just inspires me to reach more inside myself and be original and not try to be like everybody else. Because let me tell you something, I can't look at an artist today and say Prince tried to be like that artist. I can look at artists and say they tried to be like Prince.
Right.
So what do I want to do? I want to be the kind of person where I stand out amongst a sea of people who are all alike, and I have my own place in the world. So that's how he inspired me, aside from just having the best karaoke song ever with Kiss. That is the best karaoke song, let me tell you.
It really is. It
That's-
never gets old.
It never gets old, and it gets
Right.
the whole crowd moving. So aside from that, yeah, and you know, I will cherish the memories of the music forever, and I truly mean that.
Yeah, I think Tehu in Great Britain, I think people are especially fond of Americans who surpass that sort of, pop lower basic level and far ascend beyond the clouds, right, of epic stardom. And Prince was one of those people.
Yeah, Prince had a huge following fan base in the UK, and I'm sure they're equally as devastated to hear the sad news of his tragic passing. He really was a fantastic artist. The UK's had a long history of very good musicians. There's a lot of bands, and the whole music scene in London was so big, starting from the Beatles, and then straight through the 80s, and now right up to kind of with X Factor. And there is a very big, long-standing music scene, and there's a big appreciation of good music and artists in the UK. So I could definitely imagine that everyone's very saddened by the news.
I have a question for you guys. What is your favorite Prince song? Can you think of it?
Well, I have to admit 100% that I've heard a lot of Prince's music, but I can't say that I have a favorite song.
Okay.
I have a few.
Me too. I know. I was thinking about this whole time. I'm like, what can I narrow it down to? And I finally got it in my head. So I'm sorry to put you guys on the spot, but I just had to ask.
Well, that's why you're a pop culture
I know.
encyclopedia, and that's why we have you in our lives, because you keep it real and contextual at the same time. So, yeah, you're definitely outing me in terms of, like, I love the guy as a phenomenon, but I am not a specialist in Prince
Songs.
Okay,
I
go
would
ahead,
not-
Winter. So
Yeah,
you put your
please.
foot in it, so you have to share it.
Okay. My favorite Prince song is Adore.
Adore. Interesting.
Yeah, it is just the sexiest, sweetest, most romantic song. And I want to get married to that song. That's my song. That's my
Adore.
first. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. What about you?
It's a tie, but I have a few favorites. Little Red Corvette. It's always been such a happy, cheerful song for me. And then I actually really like a lot of his the stuff that he did in the 90s, the newer stuff.
Okay.
With the new generation.
Yeah, yeah.
I thought they were an extraordinary group.
Right.
And God, I love the music videos.
Oh my God.
I remember watching, that was when music videos
Yeah.
were in their moment.
Yeah.
That's when MTV was just,
when they actually did music,
Right.
television.
They had
Right.
top 20,
Yeah.
countdown. And I remember the first one, Get Off, and then Cream. That was the second one. The videos were outstanding. And they were so well made and done.
Yeah.
And but he's just, even the stuff from the 80s,
Yeah.
so much of his music is great.
I agree.
Well, the other thing that I thought about with Prince is we had 3 or 4 episodes ago, we had this whole discussion on Beyonce and the sort of sudden realization by the rest of America that she was black. Right? Oh my God, Beyonce is black. The sky is falling. The apocalypse is upon us. How dare she manifest her true blackness? And with Prince, I feel that he was at some level post-racial,
Yeah.
right? People understood that he was black because some things are patent. If you are of black color, people can't overlook at some level the fact that you're black. But he sort of, because he sort of did a great job at appealing to the masses and was like multi-genre,
absolutely.
etc., people just saw his artistry and they didn't see his color.
No, not at all.
It was almost like he was the embodiment of Martin Luther King's dream that people would be judged by the content of their character and not the color of their skin. So the Did you both sort of realize this?
I think he was a very evolved artist, very ahead of his time,
Yeah.
and he just didn't view himself that way. And he wasn't repressed, he wasn't
Right.
inhibited, so he didn't have those hang-ups and those insecurities, or what category are you going to place me in, and how am I going to be perceived by others. He just did his thing.
And I feel like that thought of someone transcending race is the thought of the person observing and not the person who's being observed. I think when you're a true artist, you go out there and it's not with the intention of, I'm going to appeal to white people, I'm going to appeal to black people. You go out there like Prince did and and you're yourself, and you make good music. Whether you're white, black, Asian, whatever, if you make good music, people are going to respond to that. And that's just what the deal is. I looked at Twitter today, and every artist from all genres had something to say about this man. Blake Shelton, there was Katy Perry, basketball players. I mean, artists, people who put themselves out there with their work were moved by this because it transcends any of the things that we, in our own minds, think hang us up,
Definitely. So what does that teach us about the self? Our psychoanalyst in residence, what does that say about our ability to just channel?
Well, our mind's an interesting thing. Our mind understands things better by putting it into categories and compartmentalizing it. This is how our mind makes sense of the world. So it's an automatic process that begins to happen. And if you haven't really interfered with that cycle or that process in some way, that's where your mind's ultimately going to go. You will put things in your mind according to a memory or things that and it will kind of go, and it gets locked into your memory that way. So ethnicity this is where it becomes very interesting with ethnicity, because we put people in categories, we label them because that's how we understand it. It doesn't mean it's correct. And also and then a lot of things kind of, trickle down from that. But a lot of people do that because there's no other frame of reference. So it seems to be something that really happens a lot where ethnicity is considered. And then, of course, come stereotypes with different ethnicities, because, again, that's how your mind understands it and makes sense of it.
So Prince was able then to, in his magnificence, force people to drop the labels.
Yes, he really was. And that's where his true genius really is at work.
Oh my God. So I'm thinking, here's my struggle as an artist. So I think that I'm a better singer in Spanish, right? I think that because I first sang in Spanish, that I am much better at evoking emotion and doing a good job at getting people to feel what I feel when I use the open vowels of Spanish, the a, e, I, o, u, and all that kind of stuff. So, but when I tell people I sing Spanish music, they automatically shut themselves because they're like, well, I won't be able to understand you. Or I won't be able to really connect with the song because it's in a different language. So I think what was great about Prince is, obviously he was an English singer. He was black, but he found a way of really capitalizing on the universality of love, of depression, of hate, or all those things that we feel throughout our lives, and really show people that the universality of all those emotions that haunt us at one point or the other, and that those feelings have validity, and that you have to understand how they work across the racial spectrum. So a lot of times people say, well, sometimes black music is so violent, or is so harsh, or is so off the res when it comes to emotional peaks. And then vice versa, black folks might say, well, that country song is just so mellow and it's so boring, and it's such a way of expressing emotion that I can't relate to. But for some reason, Prince was able to find that middle ground where everyone's like, oh, I can relate to that, or that is appealing to me. And so I'd be really interesting to if anybody's out there that is a musician, is understanding and being able to decipher and unwind and really decrypt Prince at a level that really talks to the universality of his artistry.
It's something to really aspire to as an artist, I think, as well. I mean, if he's able to achieve that and done so successfully, it means that other artists are capable of doing the same thing. It's not impossible. Just think outside of the box, think outside of the labels and the stereotypes, and really reach out to audiences, because it will resonate with people. At the end of the day, we're all human, and music is supposed to be universal, which means it should reach out and resonate with all types of people.
And when I'm thinking about your question, Alex, I think one of the reasons why, I'm sure there's so many, he was able to connect with people aside from just the artistry, is that there is just a truth in something, and things that are good. I mean, if music is good, it doesn't matter, if you're black, white. If it's good and people connect with it, people are going to connect with it. It doesn't matter what you look like. If you're true to yourself, it doesn't matter how you dress or how you come across. People latch on to authenticity.
They really do.
They really do.
Yeah.
And it's about being real. And I'm sorry. Oh, and another thing, when someone loves what they do. Prince was a true artist who loved what he did. I went to his concert. He was at the Forum back in 2010, and the tickets were like $22.
Wow.
$22. And
wow.
and I mean, I think they went as low as like 10 or something. Wow. So this is someone who's not doing it for the money. This is someone who's doing it for the love of the art. And when you love something, and when something is truly a part of you, I think people can see that, they can feel that, and they respect it even more, and they love you even more. And those concerts were sold out, and he did like 4 encores. Like the concert started at like 8, and we didn't leave there until like 1 a.m.
That's amazing.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
Really.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I think what Prince inspires us to do is to really pursue excellence, and pursue excellence uninhibited by what others might think. And a lot of times we have to sublimate our behavior because it may be inappropriate in certain contexts. But I think people really celebrate someone who says something that is true to who they are, and really, but at the same time is uplifting, inspiring, and pulls humanity forward, or pushes them forward. So again, we are inviting you to put some comments on the link or just below the link, so that we can engage with you and understand what you have to say. Are we crazy here? Are we people that are just speaking our minds and coming from places of ill sort of foundation? Or do we make sense? Do we have compelling arguments, cogency in the way that we express them? We want critiques. We want people to say, you guys need to just maybe shut up. Although at this point, silencing the three of us might be an impossible,
It ain't happening.
Herculean task.
Nope.
Especially considering this group and the fact that, we're in Santa Monica, California, and Santa Monica is known for its liberal, sort of unrepentant way of expressing the self. This is the city that first started doing recycling. This is the city that first hired a woman that manages the whole program, the eco program, right? So we are in the land of people that
are the only person who would know that. The eco program?
There's an eco program.
Only you would know that.
Well, she happened to be the lector coordinator at my church.
Oh, okay.
So that's why I know.
I see the link.
Yeah, I know things that other people don't know, not because I'm smart, but because I have exposure and access, and it's all about access. So anyway, all this to say, and we're going to segue. Are you ready for the segue, everybody? Here
Ready.
we go. The segue is, you have somebody like Donald Trump, right? Who everyone says is very authentic. He basically speaks his mind without any kind of inhibitions, without any kind of repression. He just says, and he catalyzes and is a proxy for the silent majority. Well, I think to an extent that might be true, but one of the key ingredients of a wonderful leader is that they understand how to embody the sentiment, the zeitgeist of the moment, but also promote leadership of ideals and not cave into raw, knee-jerk, visceral reactions and sentiments that I think are ill-founded and ill-placed. And so one of the greatest criticisms I have of him is that he looks at a body of people and taps into their anger and then feeds it and really exponentially grows that sentiment in a way that is conducive to his ascent in power.
Which is excellent for business. It
Right.
makes you a fantastic business savvy person. Does it make you likable, though? That's the question.
Right, and it's one thing to be to respond to a board of directors and to investors who basically want you to multiply their investments and multiply money and make the company grow without any kind of boundaries, right? Boundless growth. But it's another thing when you have a country with a very wide spectrum of constituents. There are people that are dirt poor and that need some level of assistance in making their American dreams possible. And so I think the irresponsibility of the campaign comes when that unfettered anger and nihilism at some point does not get contextualized and does not get tempered by someone who would say, well, let's think about the whole picture and not about scapegoating and pointing the finger at people that really don't have a majority of the weight of the problem. The fact that jobs left the country had nothing to do with illegal immigrants. It had to do with the fact that people wanted to make more money and labor was cheaper abroad.
Right.
I mean, it's a very simple equation. I'd rather pay somebody $2 an hour or maybe even $1 an hour than have to pay them $10 an hour and also take care of their medical expenses and take care of other sort of benefits, right? And so once we made a decision as our country that our labor was going to be exported, then a lot of the folks that were doing those jobs here have been falling in wage growth and in their riches because other people are outside of the United States are doing those jobs. And then the jobs that are low wage here in the United States started being taken by folks that would say, okay, yeah, I'll scrub 1,000 toilets in a week because I'm willing to do that. And Americans, I'm sorry to say, we have been so entitled that we're like, oh, I don't want to do that job anymore. And in a lot of the big cities, there are folks that there may be multiple jobs in the low wage sector, but they're not going to take those jobs. Do you know anyone that, like, in your neighborhood grew up and said, "Oh, I want to be the person that sweeps the floors or does those kind of menial tasks"? I don't think so. And both Winter and I grew up in low wage working class communities, and no one from my elementary school, middle school, or high school aspired to be anything but a professional. And I'm proud to say that most of us have entered the white collar world, and everyone is doing really, really well. So that is the American dream, right? You want to make
That's the
six
American
figures,
dream,
you want
yeah.
to do all this kind of stuff,
Yeah.
but it has to be based on something that is education based, that allows you that upward mobility, etc. So if we are not taking advantage as a people of the opportunities that are really there, like as we said, you don't have to pay for your education, you don't have to buy notebooks, you don't have to buy pencils, you don't have to do a lot of things that people in other countries have to do. You don't have to walk 5 miles to get water. You don't have to do so many things that we take as granted and given that other people in the rest of the world don't have
The
as a
Western
basic
world
right.
is a very privileged world, folks, and I think a lot of times, for whatever reason, we seem to forget that living in the West. It's so privileged. The rest of the world, and that's 75% of the world, I think was the last statistic I read, is not anywhere close to having the privilege that we have in the Western world. And it starts with the U.S. The U.S. is the most privileged country sitting currently right now in the world. It also has the highest level of millionaires I think. Correct me if I'm wrong out there, but I think those were the latest statistics still. But with that, yes, comes entitlement, and it comes with the fact that I'm not going to do a job that's, beneath me, and that's not bad. It means you're going to aspire to do better, but it does mean that we have to look elsewhere for labor. So, looking outside of the U.S. and exporting labor makes sense.
And Winter, you're in technology just as like I am, and nowadays the key word is automation, right?
Right.
Everyone wants to go the automation route because that means fewer workers.
Right.
Things can be done by machines, they can be done by computers, and so we have less reliance on people. I mean, you look at the malls. You used to have folks working the kiosks for parking. They were working kiosks for so many things. Now you have it all mechanically run. You may have a couple of people that may troubleshoot, that may broker if you have a problem, but otherwise it's done by machines.
Right. And the more and more as a society we go into automation, folks, the more and more the rise in mental health issues are increasing. Because we're getting away from personal one-to-one interaction. People are desperate to reach out and have that authentic, human, old school, whatever you want to call it, kind of encounter. And we're getting further and further away from it in the world of online dating, in the world of just automation. And some of it's for ease and convenience, and those are the benefits. But it's causing a lot of social problems in our society. A lot.
As I'm sitting here and I'm listening to you guys, and I'm thinking, I want to play devil's advocate because I understand exactly what you're saying in terms of, automation has all of these issues that come along with it. But I think that when we automate things as well, and when we send labor over to other countries, I think it opens up a new realm for Americans to start thinking not so much in a labor intensive way, but what can we do to revolutionize things? Work is no more. It's not like it was back in the day, back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, where everything was, factory workers, and you worked in a line, and, you had to be at work at 8 to 5, and you took an hour lunch because everything was about the product that you were, creating. Whereas I think now, as a nation, what we're doing more so is we're creating things intellectually. It's not so much about product. It's more about ideas and things like that, creativity. So while things are automated, it's also freeing us up to not necessarily have to do the work that we did previously.
Right, but in order for us to automate, we have to be good coders, and we have to understand technology and math and science. Mm-hmm. And I think part of the problem is that we are not educating young people, the children of the world, in a way that's going to equip them with the ability to be the engineers and architects of a society that's automated. I mean, I work with engineers day in and day out, and in order for them to script things, in order for them to make things automated, there is a lot of work and a lot of trial and error and a lot of technical know-how that you have to be a master of to make those things realizable in the real world and in the technical environment. And I'm a little scared because, I asked somebody the other day, what is the square root of 625? And they had to think for hours practically about what that meant. And I'm like, those are just things that we learned in elementary school, like growing up, right? Mm-hmm. And the ability to do math, code is just binary strings of ones and zeros, right? And it's a yes/no kind of decision tree. But in order for you to think that way, you have to have the educational base, and then you have to be really good problem solvers. And good problem solving comes from being exposed to education that makes you think critically.
I agree.
And so, I mean, we have a president who is continuously motivating kids to think of science and technology. We want to motivate women to get into the STEM disciplines and think about careers that are going to make them the next person who invents something, the next Bill Gates or the next Steve Jobs. And frankly, I don't know, with your little brother, I mean, is he being motivated to do that kind of work or to be that next pioneer? he has the intelligence and he has the wherewithal, right?
You know, motivated, you know, it depends on where that motivation comes from, because I don't think that motivation comes externally. You know, it's not going to come from someone else telling you you need to learn this. It has to come from within. So when I think about kids and where their motivation comes from, you know, it's hard to pinpoint these days, you know, because you have so many different people telling you, you know, money is more important and having things is more important. And, you know, so it's all about what motivates you from the inside. And, you know, with kids, the motivation could simply be for my brother, for instance, I just don't want to be in trouble today. So I'm going to go to school and I'm going to sit here and listen and I'm going to try my best because I don't want to hear my sister's mouth. So,
but have you talked to him about the fact that he could be the next person to put an app on the market? And get kids in Japan, a place that he likes, to consume American entertainment in a way that hasn't been done before. Like, is that something that he realizes is within the realm of possibility?
I mean, I think for me, the importance to teach him is to find something you love and that you are passionate about, and everything else will fall into line. I don't think, you know, it's not, as far as I'm concerned, important for me to tell him to, you know, you should learn more about creating apps and you really need to get better at computers because that's the next big thing, because there's always a next big thing, right? There's always a new technology. There's always a new thing out there to aspire to and make a lot of money. The most important thing to convey to my little brother is to find something you're passionate about, and even when it gets hard and even when, you know, you feel like you want to give up, you push through it. That's for me the most important thing. Now, that might not be the case for other people, but I think when you start thinking in terms of, you know, and I'm not saying you're saying monetary, but when you think outside of what you love and you're thinking strategically, I don't think anything good can come from that.
Well, I'm gonna very passionately disagree, and here's why. I have to breathe.
Calm down.
And it's not you, my babe.
No,
but
it's good.
Here's the thing. So if I want to pick up a huge rock and put it above my head, that's not going to come from me thinking that I'm fabulous and then I'm going to pick up this rock, right? I know that I have to build my biceps, and then I'm going to have to build my hamstrings and my quads and my glutes and my back, so that all of this orchestration that is my physical body is going to be able to take that rock and put it above my head, right? So I have to train the muscles, exercise them to the point where they are ready. Mm-hmm. And I think we've done a huge disservice to our kids by not letting them realize that they have to get to work when it comes to public education. Mm. And Matthew Alvarado Mendez, our good friend, said that we have a knowledge and service-oriented economy, but the problem is that too many people are left behind, and we have divested from public schools, and therefore we are lacking in this development. Like, we haven't fed those kids the nourishment that they require to help them understand that, you know, doing the 2 + 2 + 2, doing the quadratic equation, doing those geometry exercises is necessary in order for them to get to the next level. Like, it is, you have to build the blocks, and a house is not built overnight, and it doesn't get to where it gets just by us imagining it, right? You have to build a cement, you have to build a cornerstone, etc. So you have to do these small things on a daily basis in order for you to achieve that greatness, because otherwise you're not going to be able to do what you're passionate about.
So to take the middle ground, I see both of your points. I have an interesting one to add to this as well. In talking with a lot of young people, and I'm talking particularly the teenage category, which I think your brother fits into, there tends to be a real fear of hard work. I'm not sure where this comes from. Well, actually, I can take a guess. We live in a world of instant gratification. What we also have to teach young people today is not to be scared of hard work. If you're passionate about something, if you really want to achieve something, hard work is just a means to hopefully get there, you know? But I agree, it has to be structured. It can't be random. But I feel that everybody, so much pressure is put on things happening so quickly without this understanding that things take time. There's duration. There's years sometimes invested in things. Even artists, like you hear about it when they make it. You don't hear about the years that they struggled. They went to dance school. They spent time, in the gym. They went to voice lessons, coach lessons, acting lessons. They invested in their art for years. You don't hear about that stuff. You just hear about, the process. I know, for example, I'm currently seeking out a master's, as you know, and to become a mental health therapist, you have a good 5-6 years of continuous work. It doesn't happen overnight. So when you charge those consulting fees, you've earned it in a right because you've done the hours, you've put in the hard work. So the point is to put in the hard work and not to be fearful of it. A lot of young people are very fearful. They want to find the quickest route into, their fame and fortune without really putting much time into it.
I blame reality television, and I blame
Absolutely.
Orange is the New Black for these reasons.
Orange is the New Black.
Orange.
Yes.
You ready? Here I go.
Okay.
So Orange is the New Black. 13 episodes are delivered to you like that.
Right. You don't have to work for it.
No, and you marathon watch this thing, and then you cry and you laugh, and then there's a huge void. But you get the feeling that all that stuff comes together so quickly because you consume it so quickly. But how many hours went into actually taping
Exactly.
it, into editing it, into preparing all those artists and those actresses to get to that final product, from concept to execution, all the writing, all the board discussions and the green light and all that process.
Right.
But everybody has this feeling like, oh my God, that is done so instantaneously that I don't have to put that much work into it. And reality television as well. You see the Real Housewives, or you see million dollar listing and so forth, and everybody just kind of shows up, and you're introduced to this cast of characters, and they're already amazing, and they do all these wonderful things, and they blur the lines between almost that scripted sort of fantasy world and the reality, right? And so it's that blurring of the lines that I think confuses young people, because they say, well, this person is already a great person and it's their own life, when they don't realize that all of those people have had some degree of work done for them to get to that place.
Yes, it's not by accident. You don't just stumble along. You're not just walking out on the road and kind of stumble along into this great pot of gold in the middle of the road. I mean, it's so unrealistic. And the thing is, if that's what you're aspiring to as a young person, it's no wonder that we have a lot of very unhappy young people in our society at the moment, wandering around like lost souls without any motivations or any aspirations, thinking about what they should have had, or coulda and shoulda is okay, but what did you actually proactively do to attain that or try to get that for yourself? Absolutely nothing for the most part.
Yeah, how about 16 and pregnant, right? All of these girls have this idea that, well, that person got on the show and now they're very famous and they're getting sponsorships, and maybe they get sort of semi-celebrity status. So I'm going to get myself pregnant, I'm going to get myself a cute boyfriend, and we're going to be cast as members of this show. How is that of any value? How is that
zero
changing
contribution
our
to society
for the better?
No, not
Tell
at all.
me. If you are out there in ethnically correct land, and if you have something to say, please let us know, because I find that actually to be a devolution of our society. I think we are not only hurt, but there is a detriment to our society when we don't tell people this is wrong. This is going to make your life less successful and less favorable to yourself and to the people that love you. And Winter, I know you have more to say.
Yeah, I do. I was looking up something because this conversation actually brought to mind a book that I read by Malcolm Gladwell called Outliers.
Oh, yes.
And it just talks about, what makes someone successful. And his theory is that there are so many factors that go into creating a success for someone, the amount of hours that they spend practicing it. Sometimes it's the geographical location. Sometimes it's just the way your birthday falls on a certain day. So you have, opportunities to join specifically, a hockey team early. So because your birthday falls.
Yes, you can get lucky. I mean,
Right.
you can get lucky in business too.
Right.
The art is once you've actually got the wealth is if you can hold on to it.
So specifically, he talked about Asian people being good at math. And he correlated this to two things. One, the way that Asian people pronounce numbers. Instead of 1, 2, 3, we have a lot of the way that we pronounce numbers is hard because kids can't pronounce or talk easily when they're young, whereas Asians they make more sounds. So 1 is Z, 2 is C. So does that make sense?
Yes. So there's a tonal.
There's a tonal, exactly.
Yes.
And another thing that he relates is that Asian people will work harder at something for a longer time as opposed to giving up, unlike American children, because when you think about rice paddies and how long it takes to create and conserve a rice paddy, Asians have such patience. So they're taught that at a very early age, how to preserve a rice paddy, and that is their bread and butter. And so when it comes to sitting down and learning a math problem, because they have such patience and they've been taught patience through the growing of rice paddies at a younger age, they will work harder and not give up after a certain amount of time when they're trying to figure out an equation.
Yeah.
So I just thought about that, and I was trying to bring up the specific quote, and I didn't find it, but and I didn't mean to tune out, but I wanted to talk about that because I thought, there are so many different factors that lead to the reasons why American children tune out. And I think what you stated, Tehu, is very true. The instant gratification, is one of the biggest things.
So when I was in high school and I was thinking about different careers to explore and what I was interested in and things that I aspired to and wanted to do, or even pursuing a college degree, how long it was going to take or how hard it was going to be wasn't in my mind. What I was focusing on was how interesting it was going to be and where I'm going to end up and what the final result is. The rest of it is just the journey to get there. That wasn't preventing me from attaining my goal. And it really wasn't hindering me in any way. But I feel like now, these days, when you speak to a lot of teenagers, it gets in their way. It's like a hindering. It's like, oh, I want to do that, but that's going to take a long time. Well, my dear, what doesn't take a long time? Anything you want to do that you're going to be great at is going to take a while.
I 100% agree. However, I also think we have to think about where someone comes from. Like Matthew said in his comment, disproportionately African Americans and women, we're at a disadvantage. And I think when you are a child and you grow up in poverty, your first instinct is, how can I get out of this as quick as I possibly can? You're not necessarily thinking about the journey. You're thinking about, how can I be successful, help my family, and get out of this situation?
Okay, but does that come with the easy way or the hard way mindset?
Well, you're doing it at whatever way possible. You know? And
so I see what you're saying. So that makes sense. That's fair. So in that situation, when you come from a poverty, you just want to get out of the situation, which is totally understandable. Easy way, hard way, I just want to get out. What I'm saying is, the other side, not being in poverty, coming from complete privilege, why the laziness to pursue something that you're interested in because it's going to be hard? So what? That's okay.
Well, and I think it's very much country specific because my cousins in Mexico have done really, really well for themselves. I mean, architects, lawyers, doctors, business people. I have a little cousin who has won national awards in neuropathy and neurology, etc. And Dan has been to their apartment. There are about 11 of them crammed into a small apartment, and they don't have much. And I guess because they're surrounded by other people that don't have much, and everybody there sort of knows that education is the vehicle to exit, but they know that it takes a while to get there. They understand that hard work and not sleeping certain nights and doing all these science projects is part and parcel of the escape route. and that one of them is going to be the conduit for them to aspire to better economic success. I think in the United States, because we're always sort of keeping up with the Joneses, even in ghettos or in communities of color, etc.
We're always looking behind our shoulder.
Yeah.
What's my neighbor
because,
doing?
Yeah, there's always someone that for whatever reason may have a little bit more. They may have the coolest sneakers and they may have the better car, etc. And you don't know exactly how they attain those things, but in a child's mind, all that they know is that I don't have what Johnny has or what Billy has.
But that's even in affluent places too.
Right.
Oh, most
this is
definitely in affluent
yeah.
places. That's
it's
where
new
I
money.
feel.
It's old money. It's,
Yeah, absolutely.
It's all of that.
Right.
So,
but we're always thinking of the short-term gratification. We're already thinking to ourselves, conspicuous consumption. It's if you have that bag, then you've attained something, and people validate you. And I see it all the time. They're like, oh my God, I love your bag. I love this. They don't say I love your personality. Mm-hmm. They don't say, oh my God, you're such a great human being. They're like, we like the way you look. We like the way your hair is. We like the way you. Oh my God, those shoes! Look at those shoes. And it's like the shoes have nothing to do with your value as a human being. They're great as an add-on, but what happens? Those shoes can be, if you throw them out a window, I don't care that they're $4,000. They're going to go out the window. They're going to fall on the ground, and they're going to be worthless.
So, in keeping with that theme about just instant gratification. The way that we even learn is kind of instant. It's fast paced. We don't even give our children time to grasp an idea. That's one of the biggest issues I think my brother is facing in school. You don't have the time to even understand what you've just learned before you're on to the next lesson. And the teachers have to teach to the curriculum in the time that they have so that you can take the standardized test and pass it.
But isn't that a form of instant gratification, right? You're looking for the numbers.
Right.
You're looking for the numbers so that the teachers can get a good evaluation, the school can get more money. It's all about the money, as you said. Mm-hmm. And the more that we think about how am I going to get more money, you're already in a survival mode. And when you're in survival mode, nothing is growing. Your body, when you're in survival mode, it stores fat, it stores all these things because it realizes I'm not going to have enough to go the extra mile. So we become
You
pitiful.
shut down essentially.
We become petty and pitiful, and I think it is the pitification, if that's a word. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but
you correct us. I don't know. You the encyclopedia.
but what I'm saying is the pitiful sort of direction of the country as I think what's affecting us. We are becoming okay with mediocrity. We're becoming okay with mediocrity. We feel like, okay, as long as we reach this bar, we're okay. Because
what a shame, because what happens when you're okay with mediocrity is that all aspirations to do greater things kind of cease. And then at that point, nothing becomes outstanding anymore. And
we're right back to Prince. Yeah. Prince and people of his caliber never settled for mediocrity. They never settled for being just good enough. And I'm sorry for all the artists out there, but how many artists of the day, okay, the people that win all the awards, okay, I'm sorry, Justin Bieber and Selena Gomez and even Katy Perry to a certain extent.
Taylor Swift.
Are they amazing vocalists? I'm not sure. They may appeal and they may have some artistic merit, but merit is just giving us something. It's just giving us sort of like sevens and eights. But why do we not, as a society, require people to get to tens? Why don't we require them to be the utter manifestation of greatness and excellency when that's what we expect of doctors?
Yes, aspire to be fabulous.
That's what
aspire to be the best that you can be. Mm-hmm. Don't just settle for mediocrity. All of Western civilization, we would have never had the Renaissance if we just settled for mediocrity.
We would not be a colonized people if those colonizers had not set sail and come to this part of the world, right? Yes. I mean, America was founded by people that did not settle. Spaniards wanted to conquer the world. They wanted to do something that was beyond the old continent. And I think nowadays I feel like Manifest Destiny and all those concepts of going to the next frontier have sort of stopped. And
Like reaching your maximum potential.
Yeah. And I think we really need to really fuel people and inspire them to realize you cannot rest on your laurels. You cannot rest on your laurels. It is not good enough. And I think that immigrant spirit, that spirit of we have only gotten so far because we have not pushed ourselves. And some of the comments that are coming into Facebook is that perhaps we have it too easy. We don't want it bad enough because our lives are actually very easy. And sometimes technology advancements have
Yes,
made it...
in comparison to 75% of the rest of the world, yes, our lives in the West are incredibly privileged and very easy.
And there's some psychological stuff behind that, and I'm sure you can talk to this better than me, Tehu. But as you were talking about these artists, Katy Perry, Justin Bieber, Selena Gomez, Taylor Swift, all these people who we don't see on the same level as Prince, I look at them as these perfectly packaged artists. You know,
absolutely.
They appeal to a
manufactured.
Yes, to a perception or to an idea. Mm-hmm. More so than to an artistry, right? Girls look at Justin Bieber and they're in love because of those teenage hormones, and they know exactly how to package him, how to cut his hair. You know, same with Selena Gomez.
How to bronze his pecs,
exactly,
and his abdomen, and his hair,
and here we have
everything.
Exactly, we have Prince coming out, in a thong with a hairy chest and just being himself, and people love that too because it was so real and transparent. So I feel like there's a psychological thing that America is dealing with, and we're not honest with ourselves about what we're striving for and what we want. I think we act like it. Mm-hmm. We act like we want the good life and the American dream, and we lie to ourselves a lot about things. Like, I think us even talking about Americans not wanting to work hard and having it easy. If you ask another person that, they would probably disagree with you and say, that's not true for me.
Right.
Right.
But as David Bautista is saying, nowadays resources are abundant, so there is less effort needed to obtain them. But there is a trend in the separation of the haves and have-nots. So in some circles, I think people feel like I've achieved a certain level of success, and now I'm just going to let money, for example, multiply itself. I'm going to continue working hard, etc. But I'm going to move on to the next thing because I've achieved some success there. If you're a person who is in the constant rat race, you are doing the utmost that you can within a certain realm of possibility, but no one has sort of taken you out of that rat race and put you on a different platform, right? So if you are the person that is working really, really hard at a janitorial job, and you are, I see it in the people that work at Equinox, for example, the maintenance staff. There is a guy that's been working at the same Equinox for 5 years, and I could see the stress because he works his butt off. You don't understand how many towels he has to pick up, how many floors he has to mop, how many shower heads he has to clean, etc. And he feels that the more he does it with excellency, the less he's rewarded because the management at that facility won't even invite them to pizza when they order pizza. They're not part of the great team. So contextually, he is working really hard, but he is not contributing to the greater good in the great scheme of things, because maybe he wants, for example, to start his own carpet cleaning business, but he can't get the capital, right? So it's like there are people that already have too much and are not working because they feel like they've achieved, and then you have this other group that wants greater things for themselves and for their families, but doesn't have that extra bit of resources to be able to take time to invest and to multiply and to do the good work.
I mean, ultimately, we are servants to capitalism. We live in very a capitalistic society that awards you, and you can get lots of things. And, this is the essential foundation of Western society. But then it also means that your neighbor is constantly looking over their shoulder to see what you have so they can compare themselves to you. This is actually I'm going to bring up a very interesting experience that I had. So when I first moved back to Los Angeles, my neighbor was constantly, I was living in the Palisades, and my neighbor was, I always felt like on some level that she was kind of looking, around and comparing herself to me. And she was so interested to know what it was that I do. She was absolutely fascinated, and I'm quite a private person, and I didn't wish to share with her how it was that I
afforded the Palisades.
Yes, how I could
being young, beautiful, and fabulous.
Yeah, but I didn't want to share that with her, and quite frankly, this is a very nosy kind of thing. Of people are not. They're being nosy. They're not being friendly. Never mistake nosiness for friendliness. Somebody is nosy and they're asking you a question, not because they want to particularly get to know you as a person. This is not an authentic encounter. It's because they want to know what it is that you're doing that is so great, so they can get in on it too, can also do it. So you have to be very careful of that. So I wasn't giving her any information. And then finally, a very dear friend of mine actually turned around and gave me the idea of the next time she says that to you, why don't you say, I'm doing the same thing that you are, except better.
Did you ever get a chance to say that?
Unfortunately, I didn't. But I think about it all the time. Isn't that a fantastic answer?
But that is very much a Los Angeles thing. Invariably, the minute people know you, this is in the steam room, this is in shopping at Banana Republic, etc. People want to know, what do you do?
What do you do?
And where do you live? Because they judge you by your geographic location, and they judge you by your profession. Because that says a lot about your value in the society. In New York, for example, people don't necessarily ask you that question
or
right
in
away.
London.
Yeah, or in Mexico City or other places. But here, because people are after this Hollywood dream,
especially if you're successful.
Yeah, they want to know, what do you do and where do you live? Because they make all sorts of judgments. And I remember you took me to an event in Manhattan Beach.
Oh.
And right, and you were being the social media queen, and you had to put on a certain persona. And you're like, oh my God, Long Beach is the best thing in the world. And like and I'm like, Winter, what's going on? And she said to me, I have to be this Long Beach girl in this community because otherwise people pass judgment.
Even being a black woman in that community, I was probably the only black person at that party.
Right.
And it was one of many parties I've gone to with this company. And I actually, I brought a friend of mine there. Both of us are African American. And we even felt when we would get on the dance floor at one of these events and dance, like we were being watched.
Yes.
And not watched in a way like, ooh, who are those black girls? But watched in a way that I felt like the people there were trying to gauge how cool we were or how fun we were. And then they started to come up to us and dance with us. And it was almost like, hey girl, we can dance too. We have rhythm. And we were just like, okay. And like, we literally had like a sea of like white people around us dancing with us. And it was, I didn't look at that as a negative thing. I mean, maybe they were just like, hey, this is a cool, party. We have black people here and they are on beat and we can show them that I don't know what the hell they were thinking, but it was just interesting. I felt like we were kind of on display. And I did feel like I had to be a little bit more fun and like, I'm the cool girl, to make people comfortable and to, you might judge me for that. You can judge me for that. But I'm honestly one of these people. I'm one of these people that feels like in every part of my life, I don't need to fight against what people think about me. No. Sometimes, I'm here to have a good time. You're going to think what you want. I can't change that. So whatever.
Right. Doesn't sound like my kind of party. I'm glad I wasn't invited.
No, you probably would not have. Actually, but it was fun. I mean, I honestly had a good time. It was free booze and food, and like that makes me happy.
But everywhere I take you, though, people expect you to be a certain person. Mm-hmm. I remember when we strolled the streets of West Hollywood, like guys would stop and be like, "Oh my God, you're so amazing," and like, "I want to get to know you," but that's
Do
part
they
of your
like seriously? Do they think I'm like Nene Leakes? I'm gonna be like, honey, like what? What is this? What? I mean, honestly.
Yeah. Well, you know what? You've just whetted our appetite, and that's going to be our next show. Is the expectations of certain races, like
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I could talk about people expecting me to be that Mexican guy that wears a sombrero and all this kind of stuff, and I
And
just
me to be from the most recent episode of
the
the
Shaws of Sunset. Yeah, absolutely. So definitely, we want to thank our viewers and our listeners for putting up with us in this experiment that was a live taping, and I think we really talked about a lot of things, but we really centered on the current day's events, and we talked about what it meant to be an excellent artist and what it means to be an excellent member of society, and that mediocrity really is the antithesis of growth. And so we have whetted our appetite.
Elizabeth.
What?
Happy birthday to Queen Elizabeth.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And may we all, on behalf of all of us here, we wanted to wish our British listeners a happy 90th birthday to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth, the longest reigning monarch.
Long live the Queen.
Absolutely. Long live the
Wow.
Queen.
Amazing. To Her Royal Highness.
Absolutely.
Happy birthday, homegirl.
Happy birthday.
I'm sure nobody calls her that.
Except Michelle Obama. She may whisper that under her breath when that's coming. The Obamas are
I love
going.
it.
The
I love
Obamas
it.
are going to Buckingham Palace. So thank you so much. Thank you, Jesus Uriel Lemus Lira, watching from the Facebook offices in Guanajuato. Gracias, Luis, por tu sintonía. Agradecemos a todos nuestros radioescuchas en México y en todas partes de Latinoamérica. There you go. I was the Mexican guy for a minute. So thank you so much for being with us from Santa Monica, California. For Dan Howes, our amazing producer, Tehu Smythe, Winter White, I'm Alex Venegas. Thank you. Have a great week, and we will talk to you soon. Bye.